able to say, you don't have to go this route because I went this way.
Yep. That is a whole nother, oh gosh, because that's another idea. Listen, my idea, and people tell you when I get an idea and I do it and I figure out how to do it, I execute it. Yeah. So right now it's just the figuring out phase. But I also, like you said, and for me, the prevention is catching them early. Right? Particularly men, young boys. Let's catch them early. Because I said to myself, again, talking about generations, my husband there's 3 generations in his family of men incarcerated. Yes. His father.
Yes.
He was incarcerated.
Yes.
His oldest son is incarcerated. Wow. So right now, his father and his oldest son are both incarcerated still. His father just went back to prison after doing 20 years. He was out for 4 and went back and got another 20 years right now. His son is wrapping up, I think, 7, 8 years. So, and my husband did 7 years. And this is my kid's father. So just to kind of circle it back. So yeah, we broke up back then. We made it back around. We've been married now for 13 years.
Congratulations.
We're doing amazing. We ended up having another kid. He's 10.
Wow.
Yeah. My husband's completely turned his life around. So that this program I had the idea of was really based and rooted on his story.
Wow.
Because he was a young father. His mother had him at a young age. So it was like, okay, I'm seeing a pattern here. Yeah. And then it was like, what did he need that he didn't get that could have prevented him from doing this in the first place?
Yes.
You know, and so it was like, we got to catch him early.
That is amazing what you said. There's so many instances. As a gentleman, Ben Thompson, who does the Leadership Academy with Stacey Borden, who may be tuned in, has the own day program for people who are directly impacted to come. Has a lot of modalities of healing and so forth. So another great connection, I think. But but specifically talking about trauma informed healing, talking about the family man, right? You talk about so intergenerational incarceration. When you see father and son incarcerated at the same time.
I believe my husband and his father was in the same jail at one point.
Really?
They wasn't on the same unit, but they was in the same jail. I do believe so, because I think I remember him saying that him and his father used to send messages to one another.
Yes.
My husband tells a story of how there are men in prison that his father was more of a father to than him.
Yes.
People in prison know his father more than he does, better than he does.
Wow.
You know, fortunately, my husband and his son have never been incarcerated together.
Praise God.
You know, but yeah.
Wow. So I love the community piece, right? And we have a vision of training returning citizens to participate in the building movement, actually to build like a 5-star hotel, like a boutique hotel.
Ooh.
That will become a place that has a block of rooms for people to live, like a welcome home place, and you're in community. And it's an economic engine to be able to sustain programming. But I went to vocational technical high school because, again, academics was not my thing either.
Yeah, I get
right?
it.
Like I literally had to go to summer school for English because I just wasn't, I liked the hands-on stuff, but the academic piece, and was my best friend who was a nerd, right? Then I wouldn't have graduated, really, because he helped me. I helped him because I was more socially, and he helped me because he was more academic. And so, but with that said, you know, I love the vocational technical aspect of what we were able to offer, a resource in the community, right? Like we got, 12-course meals, and like we do these wonderful things for people in the community they could not afford otherwise, right? So I see that as workforce development, right, that we could be able to do, right, within our people come out of incarceration. People who are incarcerated are brilliant. They're leaders, the entrepreneurs.
Oh my goodness. Just to hear the story. And it's funny because I watch so many documentaries and like shows around this, right? And just learning again about people. I'm just, human behavior is just my thing. And so learning about people incarcerated and like the skill sets, the things like I'm like, oh my goodness. There's a girl who I just saw on TikTok recently. I stumbled across her video, and she's home, and she said she was in prison for 17 years, and she's coming home and she's showing people different skills that she learned throughout her years in prison, like how to make makeup, and how to do different things, like different, not even just the meals. We hear a lot about the meals that they come home with, but she's showing like the eyelashes, putting on foundation. Like, I'm like, what? Using cocoa, chocolate, hot chocolate cocoa. And like, I'm like, what?
The innovation, it is bizarre. I cannot believe, do you know, our time was already elapsed, Dr. Guan.
No.
I can't, it just flew by. It flew by. When you come back, we got to have you come back.
Absolutely.
We need to have part 2. We just scratched the surface. Me too. Me too. I'm like, we got to pause. Okay. But thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, listening and viewing audience. We've gone a little bit over time, but I'm going to go to our station ID. We're back on the other side of the top of the hour, and Dr. Guan will be back, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're back. We're anticipating Andrea James. Hopefully she's going to be with us. She may be running a tad late. Alan will check and find out what's happening. But in the interim, what a great interview we have with Dr. Guan. I encourage you to check out her practice. Very, very insightful, brilliant woman with a powerful testimony. We look forward to building with Dr. Guan. 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685, or 617-282-7794, 617-282-7794. Finally, you can call 617-265-2679, 617-265-2679. Want to go to our main webpage, www.bostonpraiseradio.tv. Thank you, our sister Michelle, for faithfully being tuned in, and all those who are tuned in on all of our respective platforms, those who are on Pastor Bruce Wall's Facebook page. Thank you for being with us. Please consider sharing the broadcast, encouraging people to tune into Boston Praise Radio ONTV Network. Healing Our Land's broadcast schedule is Wednesday and Friday, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's Wednesdays and Fridays, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. We're looking for volunteers to join our empowering descendant communities to unlock democracy, as we're looking to restore the rights for people serving felony convictions here in the state of Massachusetts, as well as to build infrastructure and capacity for us to exercise that right and to do that intelligently via our restorative justice style civic engagement circles, our workshops. We're doing community kinds of events to have more people join our movement to empower descendant communities to unlock democracy. Again, please go to our webpage, and our main webpage for EDC is, let me pull it up for you here so I give you the correct address. It is EDC dash unlock democracy ma.com. That's www.edc, stands for Empowering Descendant Communities, dash unlock democracy ma.com. That's our webpage. Joshua Oppenheimer is our media coordinator, and he is working to bring this current, so where it's under construction, and so it's not, it gives you some information, but by tonight, God willing, it'll be fully functional or more current. We have our social media platform as well. We're on Instagram. We have a Facebook page, all EDC to Unlock Democracy. We also meet every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. and you can join us for our call virtually on Zoom. That happens every Wednesday, and every third Thursday of the month, we do an orientation where you can learn more about the various ways that you can join our movement. It's meant to be a youth and young adult led and adult and institution supported movement, holistically, to do no entry and re-entry. And one of those things, again, we offer is civic engagement, spiritual support. We connect people to the resources that already exist, try to advocate to fill the gaps and resources that don't exist. But again, 617-282-0685, www.bostonpraiseradio.tv. Bear with me here, fam. I'm trying to just see what is happening with regard. Oh, I see a text here. Heading that way from downtown. Traffic is heavy, but I'm on my way. Okay, so I see a text that she is on her way. It is 5:13, so we'll play it by ear. But in the interim, again, I want you to be aware of Senate Bill 524. That's a piece of legislation that we're encouraging you to call your senator, call other senators that you have influence over, and encourage them to vote favorably for Senate Bill 524. That's Senate Bill 524, and to not just vote favorably for it, but to have it pulled from the Ways and Means Committee to the floor for a favorable vote. If you know vehicles that we can be able to have that same piece of legislation in omnibus bills or amendments, please let us know. So we want to try to find the most viable path to be able to restore the rights of people serving felony convictions. That's what the legislation ultimately will enfranchise thousands of people whom have lost their right to vote simply because of exercising it. Gentlemen who were at part of the African American Coalition Committee at MCI Norfolk were we're courting elected officials to change programming that was more rehabilitative, and as a result of that, again, that was stripped from them. And so we are now endeavoring to be able to restore that right again for those thousands of people who have been stripped the right to engage in their democracy. I understand Andrea James is on her way. So again, I'm just going to continue to try to educate you about our Senate Bill 524 and the various ways that you can be able to support Healing Our Land. Again, www.healingourlandinc.org is the name of the webpage, www.healingourlandinc.org. And we were birthed in 1998 out of a support group for HIV positive men of color. And from that, we were very intentional and engaged in the underserved, the marginalized, the disenfranchised, those who are incarcerated in particular. We typically connect people to the Mayor's Office of Returning Citizens. That's now been codified into the Mayor's Office as a permanent office. We're happy to see the budget that is connected to it. I remember when there was no budget and we advocated for a budget, and the budget has increased. Now the challenge becomes ultimately, from my perspective, for the office to be run by a directly impacted person. And that's the model of the franchise. The first Office of Returning Citizens that happened in Washington, D.C. was the formula, if you will, was that it was run by a directly impacted person who has empathy of what it feels like to live in a cage. And there's a unique experience and an understanding when that's been your lived experience, as opposed to just something you may have some sympathy for, but don't have the empathy because it's not something that you practically experience yourself. Congresswoman Presley, the first Black woman city councilor, and now Congresswoman Presley, often says people closest to the pain are the people who are closest to the solutions. And so that, from my perspective, and I've challenged every city councilor who has been recently elected that has come on to Boston Praise to make a commitment that they will advocate for the Office of Returning Citizens to be run by a returning citizen, and for it to be largely staffed, if not exclusively, by people who are directly impacted. Again, a workforce development and a sense of community and anointing for facilitate no entry, as well as intervention in a way that it is uniquely poised to be able to do. Credible messengers. I had the opportunity to go to a meeting most recently at the mayor's office, responding to the uptick in violence that happened on the 4th of July weekend. And one of the things that they said, Boston is the safest city. With that said, it was acknowledging the community-based organizations and the grassroots organizations and the organizations like Tuta Junto, whom actually are doing conflict resolution and are actually doing truces among people whom were shot by people that were rival gangs, and them, coming together and walking in harmony, and that being a model to help other people to put down their beefs and to shut down the house parties and to do, again, heal as communities in restorative justice types of models. And so these are the things that we have to do if we're going to not perpetuate the cycles of violence and the cycles of death and the cycles of pain that hurt people because a person feels disrespected or whatever, or just out of spite, right? Or out of anger. You heard Dr. Guan talk about how she acted out of pain and was violent because of pain, and hurt people. And there's a host of reasons why people, but we got to get to the roots of the why and stop the perpetual cycles of violence and of death. The Bible says it this way, that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and to destroy, but God comes to give us life, and life more abundantly. And we do that by, first of all, acknowledging the issues. We do that by a level of humility, by forgiving ourselves and forgiving each other. So it's a process, but we've got to be really intentional to pursue life. There's another scripture that says, I set before you life and death, and you have an opportunity to choose life. Amen. And truth be told, is the Bible says it this way, that Lamentations 3:21-23 says, therefore this I recall to my mind, it is of the Lord's mercy that we're not consumed, but his compassion fails not. Great is his faithfulness. The same measure in which we forgive, we will be forgiven. And so that's what healing our lands all about. 2 Chronicles 7:14, the scripture that says, if my people, this is God speaking to his people who are called by his name, would humble ourselves and pray and seek God's face and turn from our wicked ways, God promised he would hear from heaven the sacrifices that are acceptable to him, which are a broken spirit and a contrite heart. Again, 617-282-0685, www.healingourlandinc.org. We're also on Pastor Bruce Wall's Facebook page. I want to acknowledge Justin Rodriguez, one of our directly impacted coordinators, who was member of the African American Coalition Committee when he was behind the wall. We initially met him as an inside organizer, and now he's outside. He now works several entities. In fact, let me see if I can pull up his signature block. I was so impressed most recently by how this brother has come out and hit the ground running. And he is working for We Are Better Together with Ruth Rollins. And she's doing amazing work with people from both sides of the spectrum. I believe one of her sons was life was taken by homicide. Another one's life was imprisoned, and so she understands it from both perspectives. And her sentiment at the mayor's meeting was that we have to come together as community, and I concur. There's not a problem with lack of resources. It's a problem with coordination of resources. We have a system that is competitive where we oftentimes are fighting each other for crumbs, and the philanthropic landscape kind of facilitates that and kinds of has people fighting each other for crumbs rather than coming together and recognizing who does what and how we complement as opposed to compete, and identify who does what well, where we need to fill the gaps in services. And there's enough room for us all to do the work. The Bible says the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. So to pray for the laborers to come into the vineyard. So I was hopeful to pull up Justin's signature block, and I know that he founded an organization which I think it's called Top Priority, if my memory serves me correctly. So he's again wearing a bunch of different hats. He is at Northeastern for the Civic AI Lab, and he's just again doing amazing work. So we're just proud of our brother Justin Rodriguez. We're proud of so many other brothers and sisters who are taking every opportunity with their freedom to be able to have a strong focus work ethic to again change the systems. We have our jail-based ambassadors who are actually encouraging people to run for office. We're excited about that. People who are directly impacted, again, who have that lived experience. Andrea James, who again will be coming, she is directly impacted, running for governor on the independent ticket, and she will share some of her platform and some of her story. I've seen her work in community in so many different facets, and us restoring the rights of people surrounding felony convictions, and the national, her national organization that's addressing women in incarceration for families as justice of healing. She's a lawyer, a mom, so just a sister that is very unique in her platform. And so again, we're encouraging people to run for office. You can run. It's interesting enough. You can run for office with felony convictions, but you can't vote with a felony conviction if you're serving time for a felony conviction. Let me qualify that. If you're presently serving time for a felony conviction in the state of Massachusetts right now, you are not allowed to vote. However, if you've served your time as a person who was directly impacted and you had a felony conviction and you're on probation or you're on parole, then you can vote. Your right is restored upon release of incarceration. So, again, I am going to try to see. It looks as though I anticipated again that we would be here sooner. I'm not sure that it looks like it's taking a little longer than I anticipated. So again, bear with me here while I try to communicate some other information for you while we hopefully wait for our guests. So I want you to be aware that Healing Our Land, or Empowering Descendant Communities, I should say Empowering Descendant Communities to Unlock Democracy. There's about 6 plaintiffs. I'm one of those co-plaintiffs that actually had a lawsuit against the Secretary of State. The Votes Act, mandatory reporting on jail-based voting. This lawsuit is seeking an order requiring Massachusetts Secretary of Commonwealth William Galvin to release report on jail-based voting as required by the Votes Act. Under the Votes Act, Secretary Galvin is required to file reports on jail-based voting that show how many eligible incarcerated voters are in Massachusetts, how many requested vote by mail or absentee ballots, and whether they were actually able to vote. These reports have been filed within 6 months after each statewide election. The last statewide elections were 15 and 17 months ago. That was September 2024 and November 2024. But the secretary had not filed any reports. Again, this is past tense. Since our Lawyers Campaign Legal Center, CLC, and Lawyers for Civil Rights represented us, we were able to win the suit. And as a result of that, I'm happy to report that the Supreme Judicial Court has mandated that these reports they are coming out consistently. I'm working with William Galvin, the Secretary of State, as well as the the Deputy Secretary of State, to get these reports, to get this information, to standardize the forms across the Commonwealth, across houses of correction, to that it's easier to be able to maintain the data that we're now we've cleaned it up, that we now are getting reports to know exactly how many people are eligible, who the official officer is at each house of correction, and who those point people are to work with those people. And so we are working aggressively to now go to build a robust model in the Suffolk County and to replicate that model across the other 14 counties in the Commonwealth. So if you have some inroads to be able to help us to replicate that in other counties across the Commonwealth, we'd be too excited. We're building some inroads at the Essex County. I want to acknowledge again Joshua Oppenheimer, who is in the Lawrence area, as well as my sister, Katrina Evans, Everett, forgive me, Katrina Hobbs Everett. She was the first Black woman city councilor in the history of the city of Haverhill. That's also in the Essex County. So her husband, my brother-in-law, Dennis Everett, was doing a lot of work there with just youth, and just as a leader, as a young minister, as a person who was the director of restorative justice for EOPS. So we are working to be able to go into the Essex County, the Middlesex County, and any other county. If you know grassroots organizations, if you know places that we can connect to make some inroads and having people be civically engaged and going into houses of correction across the Commonwealth, please, please, please get in contact with us. And so I am going to pause. I don't know, again, I guess may have gotten tied up because it's taking much longer than we anticipated. So I'm going to actually pause, and you may hear some dead air for a moment. And God willing, we will be able to resume the broadcast when that happens. If not, we'll reschedule it for another time. But you're tuned into Healing Our Land's broadcast here on Boston Praise Radio ONTV Network. I'm your host, and we'll be right back. Okay, family. So I am back, and again, you're tuned in to Healing Our Lands broadcast here on the Boston Praise Radio TV Network. I'm your host, and you can call us at 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. You can also join us via www.bostonpraiseradio.tv. That's our main webpage. By way of announcement, I want to remind you, save the date for July 26th, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's July 26th, Sunday, July 26th, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. for our fundraising telethon that will be here. We're trying to raise resources that we can continue to be on the air, vital resources that we need to continue to be on the air. Again, save the date, and as well as join us here for Sunday morning worship, 8:30 to 9:30. We have Bible Institute. 9:30 is prayer. 10 a.m. we step into praise and worship. And that's every Sunday. You can be a part of our live interactive Bible study where we study the Word of God and how does it really impact us real time. It's not just didactic. That's just from a historical context, though we do process it from that lens, but more importantly about how it really impacts our lives on a daily basis. Hello, hello. How are you? Come on, just
absolute.
Good to see you.
Absolute gridlock.
Oh, I get it.
I left downtown at 4:00.
Wow.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. This inequality is horrible. Where do you want me?
Right, if you don't mind.
Right here?
Perfect, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
No worries. You are here. How are you? In spite of, having to push through traffic. Yeah, what's up?
I am I'm actually fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Now that I can drive back.
Yes, you need those.
He's in here.
Got it, baby.
Can I turn the volume in these down?
Yes. Yeah, let me do that.
Tiny bit.
Of course. So let's just jump right into it. So one, thank you for taking time. I know you're busy on the campaign trail, and so for those who might not know, I can't imagine how they would not know. Tell our listening and our viewing audience, who is Andrea James?
Well, first of all, and I will jump to it, and okay. I know that I'm terribly late, and I just first of all want to apologize.
You're fine.
And I, love you, Pastor, and
thank you likewise.
I am deeply honored to be here with you, and thank you. And at Praise Radio, of course, and shout out to Pastor Bruce Wall and all of the incredible work that has been happening out of this space in regard to communities that I care deeply about. My name is Andrea James. I'm a daughter of Roxbury, Massachusetts, born and raised. My family has lived in this old house in Roxbury for 5 generations, and we've been a part of Massachusetts for 7 generations. So it's something that I'm very, very proud of.
Yes.
I'm a former raised right here in Roxbury, daughters of 2 educators. My dad was a Boston public school teacher. My mom was a professor at Lesley University. And my grandmother broke the color barrier for Black nurses at Boston City Hospital.
Wow.
And really proud of that. Really proud. We consider ourselves a legacy Black family in the Boston community. And we are very, very proud of being a part of Boston and the greater Commonwealth of Massachusetts for 7 generations.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Now you also are you're a mother.
I'm a mom. I got 5 kids, and I raised 5 children, and I'm really proud of that. I was a single mom at 18.
Wow.
And I know what those struggles are like. I know what it's like to not have enough food, to struggle to get, through school, to get a college education. I know what that feels like, dragging my kid in this little raggedy plastic stroller, back and forth, walking a lot of places because we didn't have enough money, my oldest daughter and I. And, over the years, my circumstances improved, but there were a lot of years of struggle. I know what it's like to not have, my lights on. I know what it's like to face eviction. Mm-hmm. I know what it's like to not have enough money to just, move around, get to where I have to go. I know what it's like to be part of a sisterhood also of other young mothers that we were all going to class together or going out to UMass Boston together or taking the bus together, watching each other's children. girlfriends from my neighborhood in Roxbury that, really helped me to raise, my oldest daughter, and then I had other children, had another daughter in between that and another daughter while I was in law school. And, my youngest is 16.
Wow.
So every decade I had a kid. But every decade I continued to be determined. It was my children and the family that I came from that made me determined to want to get an education and to really have something that I could be a contribution to my community for. I was raised by people who believed in justice and people who worked very hard. My mother and father, my grandmother, they were fighters. They really believed in the Black community and they fought on behalf of Black children, on behalf of education. And so all of that was instilled in me early. And I've been organizing since I was a kid and all through, college and Black Student Center president, co-president of the Women's Center, really trying to make a difference, organized in law school. Went to law school with Rasan Hall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the legendary Rasan Hall. Went to law school with Rachel Rollins.
Okay.
I went to law school with Mara Healy.
Wow.
Graduated from the same law school class. So, and we were under the tutelage of one of the most amazing law school deans at the time, who just happens to be Rasan's dad, David Hall.
Wow.
And Dean Hall at the time was, I think, the only Black law school dean in the country.
Wow.
And we attended the best law school in the world, Northeastern University School of Law. But to also have the opportunity to attend that, we're going back. I went to law school 95 through 98. And it was during a crisis of gun violence that continues, but a real crisis back then. We had the street worker program at the city of Boston. We had a lot of different things that we're trying to do there. But even as law students, we were out on the street, and they say, you can't do anything in your first year of law school. Well, Rasan and I, we were out there, there weren't a lot of Black law students. Law school is very selective and there's a tiny number of students as is. And then there's even tinier number of Black law students. But we refused because at that time, mostly Black boys in our community were dying. And so to just go and sequester ourselves in, academia and good for us, we knew that we had to stay out and continue to organize. And we did that.
So talk about, you, I know you're the only candidate who's running for governor who's been directly impacted. Talk about that.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Let's go right there.
There's never an elephant when I'm in the room because
we're going to go right there.
I walk and talk it and I have had an alchemy of life experiences, and they have been beautiful and strong. Every single one of them, even ones that were traumatic and challenging, brought me to the other side of something, made me more aware. I believe that God made me walk in those shoes so that I could be better at what I was committing my life to do. And I'm formally incarcerated. I was in my private practice at that time. I kind of cut my teeth at Committee for Public Counsel Services, was one of the first community liaison, even prior to going to law school, for the Youth Advocacy Project, was one of the core group folks, Josh Doan, Jay Blitzman, Judge Blitzman, and Christine Fichter, who really got the Youth Advocacy Project off the ground, which led to the Ed Law Project, which are still now, the Youth Advocacy Project is now the Youth Advocacy Division, teaches lawyers across the country about how to advocate, provide zealous representation for children who are entangled in the criminal law system. People refer to us as juveniles, they're not. We put children in prison. disproportionately Black children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want people to understand we do that and we need to stop doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very proud of the work we did at the Youth Advocacy, what is now the division. And Ducci Goncalves now leads that, and she is a brilliant attorney from the community. And so I went on and went to law school, went to Northeastern again, graduated. I ended up in private practice and really proud, opened my law office in Roxbury, but I made a mistake. And so I was a criminal defense, trial lawyer, criminal defense attorney. That's what I was born to do, and really loved it and had a passion for it because I wanted to fight. But I realized very quickly it's very hard to change the system. The system is rotten to the core,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very, very hard to change it. Although while we're trying to change it, I did believe that we needed constitutional protections in place for everybody who became entangled in it. Well, I also was wooed into an area of law called real estate conveyance law. And I made a mistake in that practice. And I did not have the emotional, we're going back almost 25 years. I did not have the emotional intelligence that experience really taught me. I was afraid. I was embarrassed. I was, it was a very old boy kind of network. They never let many Black lawyers into that space because it was so lucrative. Real estate conveyance law is when you close loans for banks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the authority and managed millions and millions and millions of dollars for banks that were predatory and exacting predatory lending practices against our community. I didn't know any of that at the time. I had no idea. I just knew that I got this opportunity and it appeared to be great. And then it was just, I began to feel like I had cement blocks on my feet. And that's a different part of that experience. But because I saw the predatory nature of the mortgage products that they were delivering to our people, and still, despite your credit, you could have the 850 credit, but you were still moved into these predatory loans in the Black community. And my office was right on Dudley Street. And by the end of the predatory lending kind of big event or demise, many of the triple-decker and double-decker homes have become shuttered because the banks foreclosed on them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why a lot of private developers now own a lot of properties that now used to be, like my house, we've lived in for 5 generations. And that's what's different about us in Boston and in Massachusetts. We live in communities, Southie, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan. We buy houses and our families live in them, double and triple decker houses, and it affords us opportunities to get educated. Anyway, I made a mistake, and I was afraid in my real estate conveyance practice, and I was afraid to tell anybody. And so I made a choice that the minute I made it, I regretted it. I borrowed money to make up from accounts that I controlled that had millions and millions of dollars. It was like the Wild West of banking, mortgage lending at the time. It was just crazy. It was a blizzard of stuff just flying around in the air, and but I make no excuse for it. I actually self-reported my transgression. As soon as I did it, I understood, you made a big mistake, Andrea. You have to tell somebody. And I was afraid, and I was mostly embarrassed. My parents were my grandmother was beloved, and it still is. She passed away many years ago. And she was just beloved she was a leader in our community. My parents, were just amazing people. They were researchers, they were teachers, but they were also researchers of people of African diaspora. I'll never forget the day when I picked them up. They were coming back from Cuba on another one of their research trips. And I'm standing at the belt of the suitcase waiting. And I said, I don't want them to hear from anybody else. This is some time had passed since I had self-reported, called the Board of Bar Overseers and, got a lawyer, said I made a mistake and I need to be accountable for it. I need to be transparent about it. And I was from day one, and self-reported and left it up to the powers that be to determine what would happen to me. It took them 2 years to figure it out, but I was eventually charged with wire fraud, and I was sentenced to serve a 2-year federal prison sentence. And I got to tell you, I remember one of my mother's dear friends saying, Andrea, this too shall pass. And, I had just had my last child, and he's about to graduate from high school this year.
Congratulations.
But thank you. 6'2" now. But I had just had him, and I was separated from him when he was 5 months old. And that is an experience I will never forget. It still lives with me, to be breastfeeding a child one day and then you're just gone. And when I'm talking to people, I, try and find a young woman who, has a little baby in her arms. And I'm like, what would it be like to you're here one day and you're gone the next? And I was gone for 2 years. But for my husband, who brought those kids, my youngest daughter at the time was 12. And my baby boy was 5 months old. And I was separated from those kids. Having that direct experience really changed my life. I had already been an organizer. I was already determined to use my life to change the criminal law system. Never mind, the real estate conveyance stuff was, just a lucrative kind of opportunity, but I hated it. I was miserable, and I made a mistake that changed my life. But I have to believe, Pastor, and I do believe. I don't have to believe. I know. I know for sure. And I'm going to just tell you something, because we're talking about this particular issue. I was afraid for anybody to find out, and I wanted to fix it, but there was no way to fix it, because you can't take money from an IOTA account as a lawyer, and then there's no way to put it back neatly. And so the minute you do it, you know that you've made an egregious mistake, and you have to be accountable for that. And I wanted to, but I got to tell you, I don't profess at all to ever have been blessed to, hear, have conversations with God. I will never claim that, but I really was just distraught. And at 3:00 in the morning, I know my husband was like, "What is going on with you? Something is going." Nobody knew. I was afraid to tell anyone, because I was ashamed and I was embarrassed. And I didn't want to bring that shame to my family. And I remember it was 3:00 in the morning, and I said, "God, I don't think I've ever talked to you like this before, but, it almost brings tears to my eyes, tell me what to do." And as clear as day, clear as a bell, I heard, "Tell the truth." And I think that's so important right now, as I've gone through this campaign. I've done everything in terms of, I've never run for office and never want to do this again, because it has to change. Things have to change. But I think that we need transparency and we need accountability. And I heard that. And I know I heard that. And the very next morning, I went into my law office and I made all the right calls, and I disclosed the mistake that I made. I could have kept it a secret. I could have kept trying to fix it. I packed up my law office. Not only did I disclose this to the Board of Bar Overseers, I voluntarily surrendered my license to practice law, which was one of the most difficult things that I've ever done. I worked very hard for that.
Of course.
And but that was what accountability looked like at the time. And I said, I'm going to sit down, be quiet. I'm going to, just be accountable right now. And, almost 2 years later, I was found, pled to wire fraud, and I was actually sentenced. I was sent to the Black Prosecutors Association at the time, called it selective prosecution. But I make no excuses for my action. I take full responsibility for them then and now, and always have, and will continue to do so. And so I want people to know that. I think direct experience is what is missing now. I think accountability is what's missing now. I think transparency is what's missing now. That experience that I went through taught me so much, helped me to grow in so many ways, gave me the girding that I needed to do this incredibly different work that I've done for the past 15 years now. I've built one of the most successful local, national, and international organizations working to end incarceration of women and girls.
Talk about those for those who may not know what those are.
Families for Justice as Healing, which is our we started that organization. We started organizing as women in the federal system. I was surrounded by, I had to figure out how to get through 24 months. I was around women like Phyllis Hardy, the matriarch of our movement work, that had been there for 24 years already. Black women that had been buried because of the draconian drug sentencing. And that moved me. If I had never had that experience, I'm an expert on women in incarceration. I know what it is. I've done research, participatory research, every kind of research over 15 years to figure out what we can do better. I'm an expert. I work with women around the country and internationally who are the experts. I have traveled the world as an expert, invited to come in and talk about these issues. Here in the United States, I've served in that role for the Obama administration. I served in that role for the Biden administration. I am an expert. And so it's very, very difficult to think about the fact that, Pastor, as you do your work, and thank you for your work, thank you, crisscrossing the state for the past year, so many formerly incarcerated people have said, sis, I think I got a candidate I believe in for the first time. It's our race. It's not my race. It's a people-led campaign, but I can't vote. Why? Why can't you vote? I'm a felon, is what they say. We don't use that language. You're formerly incarcerated. And we've been having to educate the current political infrastructure has used the experience of incarceration that disproportionately impact. We're 7% of the population in Massachusetts as Black people. We make up 51% of jail and prison populations combined. Make it make sense. It doesn't. It does not make sense. No. And very conveniently, but for the work that you have led and continue to do. And I've gone into the jails with you, and I've made it very clear. I don't care who's listening to me. You can vote.
Yes.
And you have done, it's God's work what you're doing to make sure that the people inside of county jails know that they can vote. If you're awaiting trial, you can vote. If you've been convicted, you can vote. If you're serving a sentence that's not a felony conviction, you can vote.
Yes.
But our people don't know that.
They don't know it.
And if it adds up, Pastor, to 1.7 million people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts right now who have had some level of entanglement in the criminal law system and are not part of the electoral process. Now, whatever you might want to think about that, Angela Davis sent us a very clear message one time when we were like, who do we vote for? Everybody's terrible. And she said, this is the country we live in. This is how we elect the people who are going to do the work on our behalf. So you can't just sit back and say, I'm not going to vote. You got to vote because that's the system we are under. Now, granted, if you ain't doing what the people need you to do, you got to go. And it's the people's responsibility to get people out of there. And so, despite all of the challenges of what we're trying to do, we are bringing back, we are talking to everybody we can. I walk around with these little palm cards that let everybody know formerly incarcerated people can vote. It's called a caste system. Because it is disproportionately affecting people based on race, Pastor, but a caste system is wider than that because it also involves class. In the powers that be, I have never heard one mayor across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I've never heard any of the governor now or the previous governors in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts talk about this egregiously high number of 1.7 million. We're only 7 million people in the state, and who feel locked out of this very important system. And so I want to change that. This campaign, it's already a win-win for us, and we're running to win.
Absolutely.
This is not a performative gesture. We are running to win, and we're not trying to split a vote. We're going to take a vote. And so,
let me ask you. Oh boy, we got 2 minutes. You got to come back.
I'm sorry.
No. It's fine. Traffic happens. Listen, you got to come back. But I'll just say this. This is a rhetorical question, but I got to put it on the record. You just stated. So, do you support universal voting rights, universal suffrage? Do you think that this piece of legislation that would to restore the rights for the people?
Absolutely. First of all, you don't use the Constitution to take rights from people. You don't do that. So they moved heaven and earth. When the brothers inside of Norfolk back in 1999, whatever, they started to organize to put a stop, to engage their family members outside. And for them, we still had the right to vote, incarcerated people at the time. So they moved heaven and earth when they realized, they're like, oh no, these people think they going to affect what we want, lands. No. So they moved. You can't just take away voting rights through legislation. They changed the Constitution of the Commonwealth means of the people. Okay. All the people. Now we're dealing with a corporate wealth, but Commonwealth, our mantra is it's Commonwealth, not the corporate wealth. One of the things we have to do, though, we must do, because we were robbed of the constitutional right to vote. And we have to restore that, okay? And so we have to continue to fight. You know, that was actually where I drew the line in the sand when we had the last hearing on reinstating the right to vote. And the committee never even met on it again. They never even reconvened themselves.